expected, inflation ran hotter. For the month of October, 7.7%. That is a near 14-year high, the highest since December 2008 when inflation hit 7.8%. Of course, 7.7 for October is faster than September 6.9 and also nearly double the 4% recorded in October of last year.
Good day, everyone. The rise of the prices of basic commodities is now one of the problems of every minimum wage earners and even regular employees. The soaring of the prices of the basic commodities such as food, fuel, and electricity is now comparable to gold. But does ordinary person knew what lies behind it? Thus, he knew the concept or theory behind the rise of these prices? So today, let's talk about inflation. In this topic, let me discuss with you how inflation affects every lives of minimum wage earners and even me in order to survive. So, sit back, relax, and let's learn together when inflation strikes.
Today, we will talk about the different topics that evolves in the concept of inflation. We will be defining inflation and the concepts that surrounds it. Also, what's the cause of inflation? The good and bad effects to the ordinary person and to the economy in general. And lastly, how can the government make ways to lessen the effects of inflation? These were the important things that this topic is all about. With the increase of the basic goods and services, ordinary people would likely adjust their budget and in layman's term, paghigpit ng sinturon. But does ordinary person have idea about the concept inflation? So, in this part, I will discuss the concept inflation. So, what is inflation? Inflation is the increase in the prices of basic goods and services that people consume in order to survive or live in comfort. The money that we use to purchase the goods and services has decreased its purchasing power. The rate at which purchasing power drops can be reflected in the average price increase of a basket of selected goods and services over some period of time. The rise in prices, which is often expressed as a percentage, means that a unit of currency effectively buys less than it did in the prior periods. Mean to say, your 1,000 pesos before has a bigger value than of today. While it is easy to measure the price changes of individual products over time, human needs to extend beyond just one or two products. Individual needs a big and diversified set of products as well as host of services for living a comfortable life. They include commodities like food grains, metal, fuel, utilities like electricity and transportation, and services like healthcare, entertainment, and labor. To make you better understand the concept inflation, let's take the graphic as an example. I love drinking coffee very much, but I don't have addiction to coffee. In the year 1970, the price of coffee is only 25 centavos. As the year goes by, the cup of coffee that I used to buy is now $1 and 85 centavos. So, it gives us an idea that the goods and services that we used to buy changes its value and its price as the time goes by. So, we will expect the cost of your Starbucks coffee will change its price next year. For economists who studies economy of the country, inflation in the Philippines was high and has impact for the common people, especially who earns minimum wage or for regular office employees who receive lower salary grades. There are many reasons why this inflation continues to happen, such as the effect of pandemic, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the struggling economy of USA, since the dollar is the currency that used for circulation in the world. So, let's find out the causes of inflation. So, what are the causes of inflation? The main reason of inflation is the increase in the supply of money, which caused to decrease its purchasing power. In short, there are a lot of printed money that circulates, but its purchasing power is low. If you have 1,000 pesos in your wallet, that's a big amount for you. Now, you went for a grocery and you only bought 6 items out of that 1,000 pesos. So, that is one example of inflation. There are three types of inflation. The first is the demand pull inflation, the second is the cost push inflation, and the last is the built-in inflation. I will discuss each types in the next slides. This is a representation of the differences between the three types of inflation. These three types of inflation comes with different explanation. So let's start with the demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when an increase in the supply of money and credit stimulates the overall demand for goods and services to increase more rapidly than the economy's production capacity. When people have more money, it leads to a positive consumer sentiment. This, in turn, leads to higher spending, which pulls prices higher. It creates a demand-supply gap with higher demand and less flexible supply, which results in higher prices. For example, the supply of shoes in market is low. Since the supply is low but the demand is high, the supermarket would likely increase its prices. Still, people will buy for it since they have money even the price is too high. This will lead to inflation. Another cause of inflation is the cost push inflation. This leads to higher costs for the finished product or services and work their way into rising consumer prices. For instance, when the money supply is expanded, it creates a speculative boom in oil prices. This means that the cost of energy can rise and contribute to rising consumer prices, which is reflected in various measures of inflation. Let's take the price of the shoes as our example. The materials used in shoes production, such as leather, has increased its production cost. This will lead to increase of the shoe price in the market. Built-in inflation is related to adaptive expectation or the idea that people expect current inflation rates to continue in the future. As the price of goods and services rises, people may expect a continuous rise in the future at a similar rate. As such, workers may demand more cost or wages to maintain their standard of living. Their increased wages result in the higher cost of goods and services, and this wage price spiral continues as one factor induces the other and vice versa. Since the prices of the basic commodities and market increase, workers would likely to ask for salary increase. If the government gave the salary hike, then the basic commodities will likely to increase too. This cycle will continue since the money that circulates has increased. So, we will expect that in the future, the prices of fuel will reach up to 100 per liter, the same with other commodities and services. Inflation can be construed as either a good or bad thing, depending upon which side one takes, and how rapidly the change occurs. For some, inflation does not affect them since they don't have the concept of inflation. Bahala na si Batman and ang importante buhi are some of our reactions with the booming of prices of basic goods and services. Now, there are good and bad effects of inflation. So, let's talk about this. So, let's talk about the advantages of inflation. Individuals with tangible assets like property or stock commodities priced in their home currency may like to see some inflation, as that raises the price of their assets, which they can sell at a higher rate. If you invest to land, then your asset may increase its value and they can sell it to a higher price. An optimum level of inflation is often promoted to encourage spending to a certain extent instead of saving. If the purchasing power of money falls over time, then there may be a greater incentive to spend now instead of saving and spending later. It may increase spending, which may boost economic activities in the country. A balanced approach is thought to keep the inflation value in an optimum and desirable range. Like, for example, the price of shoes when inflation exists is high and the purchasing power is low, it is encouraged for you to buy it than saving it in the bank. How about the disadvantages of inflation? First, buyers of such asset may not be happy with inflation, as they will be required to shell out more money. People who hold assets valued in their home currency, such as cash bands, may not like inflation at all, as it erodes the real value of their holdings. Another, high and variable rates of inflation can impose major costs on economy. Businesses, workers, and consumers must all account for the effects of inflation and generally in rising prices in their buying, selling, and planning decisions. This introduces an additional source of uncertainty into the economy because they may guess wrong about the rate of future inflation. And lastly, inflation does drive up some prices first and drives up other prices later. This sequential change in purchasing power and prices means that the process of inflation not only increases the general price level over time, but also it distorts relative prices, wages, and rates return along the way. Normal people cannot control inflation, but we can control the amount of money we spend in order to survive. The government has the power to control how the economy maintains its low. So, in this part, let's talk about how the government can control inflation. A country's financial regulator shoulders the important responsibility of keeping inflation in check. It is done by implementing measures through monetary policy, which refers to the actions of a central bank or other committees that determine the size and rate of growth of money supply. The government should take full responsibility to create a strong monetary policy to control the inflation to happen. Price stability or relatively constant level of inflation allow businesses plan for the future since they know what to expect. Inflation happens over time. We cannot control the flow of economy since the economy of one country affects the other. This domino effect continues to happen to all countries. The government should have planned on how to stabilize process of basic goods and services to support the minimum wage earners and common persons that depends on their daily income. Program and strategic planning to lessen the effect of inflation will help average to low income earners to survive in this time of inflation. So, these are my references to my topic.
Inflation happens to all economies. We cannot deny the fact that our country belongs to third world country and the people will likely suffer from inflation. Government monetary policy and programs to support average and low income earners is imperative or inflation. So, this ends our topic about inflation, and I am hoping that you have learned a lot from it. That would be all, and thank you so much for listening and having a business meeting with me. Thank you and goodbye.